This is the most inhumane, vicious crime that I have handled.
2 children were found dead in crude oil tanks. Pregnant mother buried in a shallow grave nearby. Prime suspect, husband and father Chris Watts. Interviewed from within Wisconsin prison, Chris describes the unforgivable crime in disturbing detail.
Being a dad was the best part of my life. I took it all away.
Say hi, Cece.
Hi, Daddy.
Chris and Shannon's marriage looked happy and comfortable to the outside world. There were growing issues between the two.
Boy, Chris wants a boy. I hope it's a boy for him. It'll make him happy.
One night, Chris reveals he is having an affair, and Shanann, at 15 weeks pregnant, swears he will never see his daughters again. This sparks action.
That's when Chris gets on top of his pregnant wife and starts to strangle her.
Chris later reports he felt he had no control over his hands and that Shanann did not attempt to fight back.
I felt like I had to. I just felt like there was already something in my mind that was planted that I was going to do it, and I woke up that morning, it was going to happen, and I had no control over it.
However, in his letter to Shanann Cattle, author of Letters from Christopher, he writes, "When she started to get drowsy, I somehow knew how to squeeze the jugular veins until it cut off the blood flow to her brain as she passed out. But as he dragged her body off their bed, he was greeted by a surprise."
And that's when his oldest daughter, Bella, walked in the room and saw what was going on.
But she said, Mom, I don't feel good.
Chris had attempted to smother his daughters prior to killing Shanann. To his surprise, they had regained consciousness, bruised and confused, and were now watching in fear as Chris dragged his wife's body through their house in a bedsheet. After loading Shannon's body into his truck, he drives the 4 of them to a remote oil field. Here, he buries Shanann in a shallow grave, and more killing unfolds.
There was a blanket over in my hand.
In the back seat of his truck, Chris uses Celeste's blanket to smother her as Bella watches. He then proceeds to pull Celeste's body from the vehicle, carry her to an oil tank, and hoist her in. Next, he returns to the car for 4-year-old Bella.
Tell me what happened there.
She said what happened to Cece. Or she asked, it was the same thing, the exact same thing that happened to me as Cece.
At this point, Bella is no longer confused as to what is happening.
Like every time I closed my eyes, I started to hear her saying, Daddy, no, and that was it.
Chris uses the same blanket he used on Celeste to smother Bella. In one of his letters to author Shanann Cattle, Chris describes that little quit Bella had and will to live, and out of the 3, was the only one to put up a fight. He then disposed of her body in a separate oil tank from her sister, shoving each of their bodies through the 8-inch diameter hatch at the top. In his own words to Cattle, "I couldn't believe how easy it was to just let her drop through the hole and let her go."
Tell me about what you were thinking.
I wasn't. If I was thinking, it's what would happen.
Yeah.
Or at any partial hint of what I feel for those girls and what I feel for my wife, but none of this would have happened, so I wasn't thinking.
Chris swears he could not recall what he was thinking. The next day, Chris denied any whereabouts of his family and kept up the charade through an interview with Denver 7, where he pleads for his family to return.
I just want them back.
2 days later, he was arrested.
Chris Watts was your all-American dad with everything any man would ever want. Now he's sitting in a cell, convicted of the murders of everything he once loved.
This is the most inhumane, vicious crime that I have handled.
An emotional trial followed 3 months later, and the evidence against Chris was incontrovertible. He was captured on a neighbor's security camera loading Shannon's body into his truck, failed a lie detector test conducted by police, and was declared suspicious by many of Shannon's friends.
When asked if he understood the charges, he quietly responded with, "Yes, sir."
Judge Marcelo Kopko charged Chris with first-degree murder of Shanann, Bella, Celeste, tampering with a deceased body, and the unlawful termination of a pregnancy. He is sentenced to serve 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole.
Anything less than the maximum sentence would depreciate the seriousness of this offense.
Shanann, Bella, and Celeste are buried together in Aberdeen, North Carolina. This tragedy has an end, but Chris Watts remains a monstrous being who will pay for his despicable crimes.